welcome to Temple of Geek's Who Review, a Doctor Who-inspired podcast for fans of the long-running British science fiction television series. I'm your host, Nathaniel, or Doc in the Box.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, aka Lady of Time Cosplay.
And our guest host.
I'm Alexandrea Callaghan.
We are all massive Doctor Who fans. We're here to talk about all things Doctor Who. Throughout our series, we'll be discussing the latest episodes, the classic series, spin-offs, and basically everything in between.
We'll also be bringing you interviews with people who have worked in and around the series, behind-the-scenes information, and all sorts of Doctor Who-related fun.
So whether you're a longtime fan or just getting started, we hope you'll join us for the ride.
And today we're going to be talking about Season 2 of Doctor Who. First, let's do the news for the week, or Doctor Who news.
The first hour of the Doomsday cross-platform story was released this week for free on the Doctor Who website. The short story, 1 hour, which is its title, by James Goss, kicks off the assassin Doom's story and sets up her chase after the Doctor, desperate to get the Time Lord's help to survive what seems to be a countdown of their own death. The next part of the story will be released as a 16-page comic story in issues 592 of the Doctor Who magazine. And I actually know they do have Doomsday comics as well, and it looks like Missy's on the cover featured in them too.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about this one of the other weeks, but yeah, so there's going to be a bunch of different stories. Each story is 1 hour in the 24 hours that she has to survive her own death, and she's trying to get the Doctor's help with that. It's, short stories on the Doctor Who website, comic in the Doctor Who magazine, Titan Comics, Big Finish, all sorts of stuff. So I think that's over the next couple months, so that'll be fun. Speaking of Big Finish news, Big Finish has announced the panel of judges for the Paul Spragg Memorial Short Trip opportunity this year. The competition, which seeks to find new writing talent for Big Finish's range of Doctor Who stories, is held each year in memory of Paul Spragg, the producer's assistant at Big Finish who passed away suddenly in 2014. This year's judges will include Big Finish's creative director and executive producer Nicholas Briggs, former Doctor Who brand editorial manager Gabby DeMathis, Big Finish producer Dominic Martin, and the Short Trip's range producer Peter and Gladys. Peter, I apologize for butchering your name, Peter. Entries for the competition are open until June 30th.
Additionally, Bonnie Langford returns to Doctor Who. After not a long break, but not quite long, she made an appearance. Bonnie Langford will be returning to her role as Melanie Bush for the new series of Doctor Who. First introduced in the episode of Terrors of the Vervoids, Mel was a companion of both Colin Baker's Sixth Doctor and Sylvester McCoy's Seventh Doctor. More recently, Mel appeared at the end of Power of the Doctor, Jodie Whittaker's final episode as a 13th Doctor, and Bonnie had this to say about her role as Mel. I am absolutely thrilled to be bringing Melanie Bush back to be part of the exceptional cast, crew, and production team led by the force of nature that is Russell T. Davies, is a career highlight. I'm so privileged and proud to have been a member of the Doctor Who family since the classic era, and to be included in the new generation is phenomenal. Bonnie Langford joins the growing list of phenomenal guest casts for Shudigawa's first season as a Doctor, as well as Gemma Redgrave, who will also reprise her previous Doctor Who role as Kate Stewart.
Possibly the only episode I've seen with Mel is Ace's first episode, so I definitely need to go back and do a watch through of that for sure. That would be a good episode, watching some classic Who series with Mel.
The Five Doctors would be funny.
The Five Doctors is fun. I don't think Mel's in the Five Doctors, but
that in general is a special watch.
Yeah, I know. Dana did mention it might be cool to do a series on like previous anniversary specials, so we can do that maybe.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely! The anniversary specials are always so good.
So much fun. So much fun. All right, and one more piece of Doctor Who news this week. A new in-universe Doctor Who encyclopedia is due to be published November 16th this year. Written by Simon Guerrier, Unam Cormack, and Jonathan Morris, Whotopia, the ultimate guide to the Whoniverse, is told from the perspective of the Doctors and other characters that populate the show's universe. The book is available for pre-order now. And it comes out just in time for all the other stuff happening in November. All right, so now that we got the news out of the way, we are here to talk about Season 2 of Doctor Who, aka David Tennant's first series as the 10th Doctor, or the 11th Doctor, as the numbering may vary, or the who knows what number Doctor at this point.
The Doctor's just the Doctor. We'll just
the Doctor.
yeah, basically.
Yes. So David Tennant's first series as a Doctor, joined by companion Rose Tyler, as played by Billie Piper, as well as a lot of other fun characters this season. So yeah, let's jump right into it, guys. What memories do you have of watching this season for the first time?
So I actually started watching Doctor Who because of David Tennant. Like, this is the season I was waiting for, but I had to wait like 2 weeks after I had finished the first season because I didn't know how much I would love Christopher Eccleston, so I had to like grieve his Doctor first before I went into David Tennant's. And really all I remember from my first time watching the season, because I finished the first season in like less than a week, is how much I love him and Rose's dynamic. Like, David Tennant and Billie Piper's chemistry on screen is radioactive. It is so easy to see and feel through the screen, and it's just amazing to watch. And I don't think that's changed at all. Like, that's still one of my favorite parts about rewatching that season.
For sure. Yeah.
For me, like you said, that was the first impression of the series,
Mm-hmm.
or what?
Yeah, like what you remember from watching it the first time.
I remember his first episode, it being cut, in my opinion, and I know everyone loves the 10th Doctor, and I love the 10th Doctor, and I know everyone loves David Tennant, and I love David Tennant, but he has to have probably one of the weakest regeneration episodes in all of New Who, in my opinion. He was not in the episode for almost the entirety of it, other than laying in a bed, wasting, expelling regeneration energy. The Christmas tree was attacking the Santa Clauses. It was very campy. There was blood control. So I remember thinking, this is an interesting start. Obviously it was a great season. I enjoy 10 and Rose together, but his regeneration episode was probably on one of my lower ends of the tier system of regenerations.
Yeah,
that's fully fair. Yeah,
that's a really good point. Yeah, mostly what I remember from my first watch through is just being on the internet, being aware of Doctor Who. You know that something is coming at the end of the season. So I remember like watching the entire season just like aware that like something sad is coming. I don't know what, kind of thing. But I remember watching it, and there's a lot of really good episodes in there. I think we'll talk about it a little bit later. There are some parts of this season that, going back and rewatching it, I'm a little like, yikes, kind of thing. Love and Monsters, I was a little cringe at. I found out later that, of course, that episode was written in part because of the Blue Peter competition, which is a show, for the kids and everything. But there's just, we'll talk about it a little bit later, but there are some parts where I was just like, either because of the writer's own biases or just because of the time that the show was written in and produced, kind of thing. Yeah. It's just kind of happened. One little fun thing, though, that I almost forgot to work in somewhere is, did you know that, and this is fun fact for everybody, that because of, technically the 10th Doctor has the most episodes set in the future of any Doctor because of 9 getting Rose back a year after they left. So everything technically, even though the season aired in 2006, everything is technically set in 2007 because of that little thing. Yeah. I was like, that's a fun little fact. Yeah. Yeah. I was like, who would have knew? Yeah, it's very much a technicality.
Right.
Yeah, because it's present day, but not present day to Rose.
Right.
Yeah, because she missed a year.
So how do they gauge that? Is it on world time or is it on companion time?
I suppose companion time?
Yeah. I mean,
because technically our point of awareness too.
Right. Yeah, because like the episode Rose, the first episode Rose of the revival was set in 2005, but then you get the episode where he brings her back. She's been missing for a year essentially. Yeah. So it's then 2006 in the show, but the show's still airing in 2005, and then this season aired in 2006.
I love
but
this
in the
show.
It's 2007. I know.
It's so goddamn confusing. I love it so much.
Exactly.
And dude, easy cheap time travel right there. Just bump a year.
Like she's got technically the most set in the future, which is always so much fun.
Yes.
So speaking of that though, when you guys first watched this, specifically, what was your first impressions of David Tennant's Doctor?
So I was really late to the game. Like I grew up in peak Super Hulock Tumblr time. And
yeah,
I've
had a Tumblr since 2012. Hello.
And Supernatural was something I grew up on and revisited when I got to college. Sherlock was something that I watched while I was in college, and then I just refused to break that seal for a little while. I was like, no, I will not be a full Super Hulock nerd. I will not do it. And then I came home from college and I was like, all right. And so when I started watching it, I was like, I'm so stupid. Why did I hold off on this for so long? This is the best one. Right? So I remember watching it, and I watched it for David Tennant because obviously by that point, the fourth Harry Potter movie had come out. So I was in love with David Tennant. And I just remember it just being wildly entertaining to me. It was a comfort show immediately, and he's hilarious. I love the way they wrote him and Rose's storylines. Like, you're basically just watching them date for a season, and it's awesome because that's exactly how you would interact with someone who you're dating who is also your best friend. And I think they played that dynamic really well. And so I always say that David Tennant is my favorite Doctor, but he's like my least rewatched Doctor because that first season ends so painfully. I cannot go back and rewatch it for any extended period of time. I will watch it right up until the last 2 episodes, and I'm like, and on to Matt Smith. Like, fast forward, I'm done. But he is truly my favorite Doctor. He does such a good job that I can't rewatch this season very often.
My first impression of him was, we obviously went into him hardly being in the regeneration episode up until the very end when he finally wakes up. And I remember thinking, sorry, but what a cocky little shit. Because he's fighting, not the Atraxi. What are they called? It starts
the Sycorax.
Sycorax. He's sword fighting the Sycorax, and then his hand gets cut off, and then he regenerates it, and then he's like something about like he gives chances, blah blah blah, and he walks away, and the dude goes to attack him, and he throws a thing. He's like, no second chances. I'm that kind of man. Like, oh, okay, mister.
It was
like,
great.
Damn. And I do enjoy like the strict, stern, like a darker Doctor. That's kind of why 12 was like one of my favorites. But like the way it happened, he started off all like goofy. And so he's like, oh, there's a big red button. Obviously, I'm gonna press the big red button. And then he's like, no second chances. I'm like, damn, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I very specifically remember being very upset when Christopher Eccleston disappeared at the end of that episode, being, like, I was kind of aware of the mechanics of the show when I started watching it, but, I was like, I was kind of like, who's this new guy? I'm like, I don't know. And the entire episode, I was just like, oh, why is he sleeping? Da, 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 da. And then he wakes up, and he comes out, and he starts quoting The Lion King. I was like,
sold.
All right, I'm in. Here we go. Like, that was literally, that is what happened. He comes out of the TARDIS. He's like, look at these people. These human beings, from the day they arrive on the planet and blinking step into the sun. Hold on, that's The Lion King. I was sold. I was completely sold just because I am such a Disney fan. As you can, a little bit of my different background that I've got here today.
Disney acquired now.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Disney partnered. I have a feeling this is a partnership, much like with, Pixar and the Jim Henson Company. I'm pretty sure this is let's see how this goes. And if it goes well, they are probably going to wind up buying them, But yeah, and then I just fell in love with him. I always tell people 12 is my favorite Doctor. but David Tennant is one of my favorite actors, and 10 is just
that's totally
only
fair,
this much behind 12 for my favorite. And he's just, I remember just being like, oh, you know, like he's such a good actor, and he won me over with a Lion King line, you know, and I just really, really, really adored his doctor from the get-go, which I have yet to come across a doctor that I just straight up didn't like. There's some doctors I like better than others. There's some doctors that I'm a little like, I can take them or leave them kind of thing. But 10 is definitely one of my favorites, and it was a lot of fun getting to watch these episodes for the first time.
Yeah.
But I kind of talked about this already a little bit too, but what are your thoughts and feelings on the 10th Doctor Rose ship and dynamic, whatever you want to call it? Have they changed since you first watched the show at all?
They have not at all. Like, not even a little bit. I love 10 and Rose possibly more now than I did upon first watch. I will say I should go back and rewatch like Martha's season, because I was so emotionally invested in 10 and Rose that when Martha came on, I just freaking hated her guts. And I think that was slightly unfair. But,
to be fair, the show's a little bit the writing for the show is a little bit to blame for that.
Well, if they didn't have her like flirting with the doctor, I feel like I wouldn't care as much. But I'm like, no, not for you. But with them, I just, because they're really good friends in real life, and that reads on screen really, really well. I mean, I remember watching the interview with Billie Piper about, like, they asked her, you know, you were going to leave after Christopher Eccleston left. What changed? She's like, I met David Tennant. Simple as that. And you can see their real life relationship come through on screen. And yeah, there's a romantic element to it, but it's very obvious that they're best friends. And that's a relationship that is almost never well written in television. Like, especially male-female friendships. That's just, it's a dynamic that doesn't get explored well very often. So I think that was part of why I love them so much, is they are more best friends than lovers, but you can see both dynamics healthily played out in a way that doesn't get much light in television.
In retrospect, for me, I feel like the whole best friend thing, the way they interact, was really, really good, and you can see it, and it was genuine. But I feel like Rose with the Doctor, she fell in love with 9 and was best friends with 10. And of course she loved 10, but she fell in love with 9. And in retrospect of like everything, I feel like they did the opposite formula with 11 and 12, where Clara was kind of like buddy best friends with 11, but then she fell to love, and then she started to love 12. And that's where they really started getting connected, and obviously problems occurred and things like that. But I feel like it was like an opposite formula there, where they just flipped the switch and changed the order of it.
Yeah, I know this is a fan theory. I'm pretty sure it's been given no confirmation whatsoever, but I saw it probably on Tumblr, how like the Doctor regenerates to what the last companion wanted or needed. So like obviously Rose was in love with 9. We all saw it. Their chemistry was great too, but he was like physically way older than her. I mean, obviously he's like hundreds of years older than her, but like his physical being was older than her. So when he regenerated younger and cuter so that they were more compatible, I guess, to audiences. But I like that theory because it kind of like plays out in the rest of the regenerations as well.
I did used to ship it a lot harder than I do now, I think. Because not as bad as some people that I've seen online, but for a while I was like, the Doctor can only love Rose kind of thing. But again, not as bad as other people were. But but
this wasn't until I met River Song.
Right. This is exactly my point. Yeah. And then River Song happened, and then you watch other stuff in the show, and you go back and watch older episodes and stuff. But this is getting a bit ahead of ourselves with season 4, but like the 10-2, the Metacrisis Doctor and Rose ship, I love, and I wish that they would explore more in the extra stories. Though there is one extra story with them that I refuse to even consider as canon because it was so poorly characterized. But, you know, the Doctor has different people at different times in his life or their life, you know, and that's okay. I mean, you know, the story between Ten and Rose was written so well and so heartbreakingly. I see why people get so defensive about it. I mean, like I said, there are definitely people, especially on Tumblr, who get a little too much about it. Or at least they used to. I feel like Tumblr's kind of moved on from Doctor Who at this point. That or my Dash is just dead and nobody talks about it anymore. But, you know, it's a very cute ship and I love it. And yeah, it's just a fun dynamic, whether you ship it romantically or not. I kind of talked a little bit about how my opinions, at least on the you know, ship of Ten and Rose, have changed. But have any of your opinions on this season changed since you first watched it?
Kind of. Like, I remember, just because it was so new to me still, because it was the second season of Doctor Who I had ever seen, and it was still really, really brand new, that I was just enthralled with just all of the episodes. And upon rewatching, there are a couple that I just don't care about as much. Like, in the middle of the season, it was the Cybermen episodes, if we're being honest.
Okay.
I was like, oh, these are boring in comparison to
Okay.
And I mean, look, Doctor Who is one of the only shows that has been on this long that has maintained, like, network rules. So there's a certain amount of episodes a season. And yeah, it's BBC, so it's less than it is here. But they have season lengths. So they're not all going to be winners of episodes, okay? That's just not statistically how that works. But I just remember, because I think they started off this season so strong with, like, New Earth and the werewolf episode and School Reunion, especially with Sarah Jane, and the Girl in the Fireplace episode, that once we got to the Cybermen, I was like, okay. Like it just felt, they weren't bad episodes, but because the other ones were so good that there was a dip in interest for me towards the middle of the season. And then it picks right back up with Impossible Planet and Satan's Pit are great episodes. Like, it goes right back up, but that's why that dip was just so obvious, was because the rest of the surrounding episodes were so good.
I think it's interesting as far as the Cyberman episodes, because they went into, obviously, Pete's world, they went into the parallel universe, but they were kind of reinventing an old enemy by having the Cyberman have a different origin in that universe versus the regular canon universe.
Right.
And even though it was a lull in that season, it was pivotal in the overall arc of the 10th Doctor and Rose when we get to talking about the next season.
Yeah, Pete's
for
World,
sure.
all that stuff. Yeah, I know it's kind of funny watching the MCU kind of start taking things from Doctor Who a little tiny bit. I mean, they're kind of like general sci-fi tropes in general, you know, but like the multiverse and canon points or fixed points in time kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, that's all I could think when I was watching Spider-Verse. I'm like, are we talking about fixed points in time?
I'm like, oh,
it's
interesting.
a canon event. So it's a fixed point in time.
Oh man, yeah, I know. Like, I did have the thought the other day. I'm like, I'm sure this is not where they're going with it, but I'm like, I want to see what the Spider-Man version of the Wedding of River song is. Yeah, for me, I just kind of, you know, I didn't get through a full rewatch of season 2 before we recorded, but I just kind of, there was just some stuff that I noticed more. I had this with season 1 when I was rewatching it too, where just like there was some stuff that either in recent context or just like stuff kind of, you know, just knowledge of how things are a little bit more. Like, for one thing, but like Mickey's comments to Rose about, oh, maybe you should lay off the chips in School Reunion, you know, or the Doctor being like, oh, you screamed like a little girl in School Reunion. It's like, yikes, you know. But I also do think that even though that episode has its moments, I do feel like I appreciate Sarah Jane's appearance even more. I haven't watched I haven't watched a ton of her episodes, but I really do love seeing those connecting threads that we get with the older series. I mean, we're going to get that in the next coming up series too, with Bonnie Langford coming back, like we discussed in the news. But it's just, I like having, because I'll see some people sometimes be like, oh, aren't you getting MCU fatigue? I'm like, I am a Doctor Who fan. Do you know how much I love it when stories connect and are told over a long period of time? I'm like, yeah. I mean, I had some, just like, after rewatching it for the first time after a little while, because the 10th Doctor seasons are ones that I have watched a lot. So I didn't really need a full rewatch because I have seen them so much. But the stuff that I did rewatch, I did have, like, there were some bits and pieces where I was just like, with Rose specifically, just with how she's written. I mean, I know she is supposed to be the audiences into the show, but she the line that she says in Christmas Invasion, what's important about us, we're nothing. And I'm like, girl, you have been traveling with the Doctor for how long at this point, or some of her earlier conversations with Sarah Jane where she is so intensely jealous and so seemingly thinks that this is out of the blue that the Doctor would have ever traveled with anyone but her, even when she was able to get that one guy whose name is escaping me on board, or Jack traveling with them. I mean, I kind of get.
I know who you're talking about. We don't remember his name.
We don't.
Yes.
We don't remember his name.
I get what they were going for, but I feel like they could have had those conversations in a way that didn't seem to like I don't know how to phrase this, but just it bugs me. It feels like it was an ungenerous way to introduce the concept of another companion, because what I understand that what they were doing is like getting the audience ready, especially because it's an audience that is not familiar. At the time, maybe it was a lot of new people coming into the show, and so they were getting the new fans ready for like, hey, just so you know, the companion doesn't stick around for forever kind of thing. I just feel like there was possibly a more generous way to do that.
And I think that stemmed a lot of her jealousy. Like, yes, there was jealousy because like they started having all these in-jokes that she just wasn't a part of, and that's uncomfortable for anybody. Yes. But I think a lot of it was, and she says it in the episode. She's like, you traveled with her the way you're traveling with me, and then you just dropped her off and never came back. Like, is that what's going to happen to me? Am I going to go on all of these amazing adventures and then go home and what? Like, what's after that? Like, that's kind of a hard thing to reconcile.
Yeah.
And I think that's where most of like hostility was coming from Rose.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Is she was, her initial reactions with Sarah Jane was like, excuse me. I don't think it was that there was someone before her. It was that she could have been in that same position. And, that's hard for her to think about. And
yeah, that's a really good way to put it. Yeah, it's just especially mostly it was the line in Christmas Invasion where she's like, we're nothing. And I'm like,
well, what? I think some of that too, like I can agree with you, and I can argue for the way it was written as well, being that we're looking at it in one retrospect and also in more mature eyes, where she's a 19-year-old girl who goes through like feeling like everything's either totally awesome or like I just fucked up and I'm nothing, and and not that she messed up right there, but you go through those little pits of like, or little fits of like, I'm not doing what I need to do. What am I doing with my life and so forth? So they might have been playing off her age at that point.
Yeah, that's true too.
Which is totally fair, because that's still a very over emotional and hormonal time for young women. So that was like a lot. And I think that moment in Christmas Invasion too was also like her going, I should be better at this by now. Like, you're right, because she had been traveling with the Doctor for a while. So she, in her mind, she's like, why can't I fix this? Like, why do I need him? I'm not doing what he taught me to do. Yeah. And I think that was kind of, it was an emotional response to a stressful situation.
Yeah. I really did. I did enjoy her, her little speech of, kind of taking different enemies and different things that they've faced.
It's just like, what do I remember?
The Shadow Proclamation and the Daleks and the... I'm like, I love you.
I thinking super hard about pronouncing Raxacoricophalobatorius. I'm like...
Yeah, like I genuinely love her as a character. Just some of the writing sometimes I'm like, sometimes I was like, I don't know if I completely agree that this is who she is or exactly how she would react in that situation, I guess is kind of what I'm trying to say. Even though I get what they were going for and everything. I do think overall, The Girl in the Fireplace handles that kind of learning curve for Rose better than School Reunion did, but you made some very good points about how it's not just the jealousy, it's the
I just love that episode because there's just so much going on in that episode. It's great. Anthony Stewart Head is in that episode. Like, it's a lot of good.
I was watching, we talked a little bit about Super Hulock, but it was funny because when I was rewatching the episode and they're like talking in the pool, I'm like, oh, this is Sherlock and Moriarty.
Yeah.
Oh, God. But yeah. But yeah, just it's a really good season overall. Just yeah. But I also wanted to talk about this is kind of, you can talk about all of this or just parts of this. What episodes, scenes stand out to you this season, either for the Doctor, a companion, or a guest star? Just any of that, all of that, whatever you want to talk about.
Honestly. And I talked about how I just love most of the episodes in this season, but Impossible Planet and Satan's Pit, because they did a lot of two-parters in this season too. Mm-hmm. Because it shows, I think, and it's not really the first time we've seen it, but I think it's the most intense time we've seen it from at least Tennant's Doctor, how dark he can get. Like, just how broken he is and how much he's lost, so that when they get separated, because he needs to go down into the pit or whatever, and then you also see just how viscerally Rose loves him and is like protective over him, and she's like, dude, no, I'm not doing this. You bring him back up. I can't do this without him, kind of thing. And they both have that dynamic, and I think it's the first, because I feel like in each season there is like, you can pinpoint a time where you see the Doctor's darkness and just how much he's gone through. And I think that was the point of the season for Ten's Doctor. I think for Eccleston's, it was, God, I don't remember the name of the episode. The first one with Jack Harkness, and because that was Dr. a two-parter too.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Dr. Dances.
Yes, thank you. And he's like, just this once, everybody lives, and you're like, that hurts just to hear. But I think that was a very similar moment to me. It was you see just how intense they go about life because of how much they've gone through.
I really enjoy Satan's Pit for that reason also, but I'm honestly surprised to this day. Maybe it was in the height of the Tumblr era, maybe this was focused on more, but I'm surprised that the moment when he's hanging on the wire and he's like, oh, she knows, and then drops the Han Solo moment. I love you, I know. It's just like, I'm surprised that wasn't fixated more by fans.
Well, they pull that crap again. They pull that crap again when 10-2 like goes to the alternate whatever, and then she's like, no, I need to hear you say it. And then 10-2 whispers, we assume, I love you to her. I'm like, no, fuck you. I needed to hear it. It's one of those moments I will always be bitter about. I'm like, excuse me, that was not just for her.
May the crisis just went up and was like, I've been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty.
It's a good one.
Amazing.
It's a good one. I'm going to make a little confession here. I have never watched Impossible Planet and Satan Pit all the way through. Mostly because, I mean, I also don't watch Supernatural, and I've never seen Good Omens. It's just one of those, like, uncomfortable things for me. Like, the whole, like, devil thing is just one of my, like, I can't, but I've seen the highlights, I've seen the highlights. I'm aware of the important, little shippy moments, at least. One of my favorite episodes this season, though, is Girl in the Fireplace. It gets a lot of flack from people because, it's like right in the middle of the season of 10 in Rose, and how dare you ever insinuate that he could love somebody else kind of thing.
But I will agree with them in this instance.
But it is such a phenomenal episode, and it's so interesting because it's, you get it with the Doctor dances a little bit, the empty child and the Doctor dances a little bit, but like this is such a like Stephen Moffat episode because it sets up so many of the ideas that he's going to expand upon later. I mean, at the time, obviously probably nobody knew that he was going to be the next showrunner and everything.
Right.
But again, I think it does the setup of like Rose coming to understand that while she is such an important part of the Doctor's life right now, unfortunately, that's not always going to be the case. I think it does that a little bit better. I think there maybe should have been an episode in between the two, so it's not like that constantly kind of shoved in people's faces. I feel like that might have been part of the fan backlash to that episode as well. I'm not saying that Rose is perfect and she would never react negatively to the idea of somebody else in the Doctor's life, but I don't know. The two episodes handle it very differently.
I will say I love that episode because of Rose's, like, we see more of Rose not wanting to share the Doctor, not just with other women, but she didn't want Mickey there.
Yes.
She was like, why did you let him come? And the Doctor goes, I let you keep Mickey. She's like, yeah, but I didn't want him here, though. Like, can he go back? Can we return the present? Because she just doesn't want to share herself or her time with anybody else. And I think that's an important thing to see too.
Yeah, well, it's such a beautiful episode too.
Mickey's kind of a special circumstance in that situation too, because like if it was Captain Jack, I think she'd been fine. But since that was her, I don't even know what they were exactly at the time. If they were still together or if they were just like chill or what. But there was definitely like I don't want him here. He's cramping my style with you. Like, we could drop him off anywhere. But if it was Captain Jack, I'm pretty sure she would have been okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's totally fair. Yeah. I also think that, like, Mickey symbolized her old, very boring life to her. Mm-hmm. And, like,
that's fair.
Jack and the Doctor were these adventurous men who got to like let her be everything that she always felt she could be. And so with Mickey hanging around, she's like, no, that's not who I am anymore. I don't want him here. I feel like he's going to make me feel like I should go back home, because she always felt kind of guilty over leaving her mom. And with the other two, she's like, yes, this is what we're supposed to be doing. This is what I can do. This is what I'm capable of. And Mickey was just kind of like an anchor around her neck.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, I don't like people my age anymore. I need men that are hundreds of years older than
me. Yeah. It's an episode that I really love, even though, the whole ship thing, we could talk about that forever. But I love that. I mean, it's just like, it's such an interesting setup. It's a very fairy tale Moffat episode. And I really loved his run. I mean, we'll talk about this more once we get to those later seasons that he ran for, but I really love it.
I also think the design in that episode was really, really good. I will say the early Doctor Who gets some shit for its lack of amazing CGI. Sorry, but first episode, really first big rubber suits. Big rubber suits are hard to look past if you don't have any emotional investment into the show already. I tried to get my dad to watch Doctor Who, and as soon as Mickey goes, pizza, he's like, nope, I'm turning it off. I'm like, all right, you watch Xena Warrior Princess, okay? You can power through this, bud. But I think the design in that episode was also just really, really well done.
Yeah.
And it set it apart a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that kind of mesh of this very futuristic but dilapidated, spaceship and this very, gorgeous era of French history is just, it's great.
Also,
and I love it.
The
and
clockwork droids were really cool. Yeah.
They were really well done. Yeah.
Another like just kind of little scene in the season that always kind of gets me is in the Cyberman 2-parter, the scene where the Doctor and the lady whose name I forget, but they come upon that one Cyberman, and they're able to fry whatever, and then it turns out that it's a woman who is supposed to be getting married in the morning. Like, for whatever reason, that little scene always just kind of gets me, kind of thing. I do really like that 2-parter. Maybe that's just because I haven't seen Impossible Planet, Satan Pit, but I do like that 2-parter. It was also fun rewatching it after seeing some of the older seasons, because there's a line that the Doctor has, when they're talking about how they're going to get into the factory, and he's like, above, between, below, and that's like a throwback to the 5 Doctors, which is fun, because they're talking about how to get into Rassilon's tomb. Yeah. Love and Monsters is an episode.
I skip it every time, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
Once, and then I was like, nah.
But I
don't have anything against the monster itself, because the concept is very Who. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, it's an episode. It's the ending. You could talk about like, yikes, but I love Jackie Tyler so much. And her scenes in that episode, especially when she's having a go at Alton for trying to use her to, to find the Doctor and to get close to her and to find the Doctor. She has the line about, it's this life makes you hard, and how dare you kind of thing. Like, Jackie Tyler just overall, I think, is really underrated as a character. She's amazing, and I love her so much. I also feel like The Idiot's Lantern is a bit of an underappreciated episode. I know, it's Mark Gatiss. It's going to be a little camp, but I feel like it's really underappreciated. It's especially the kind of B storyline that you get with that dad and his son feels very powerful, and I adore that. It's another one of those episodes where you see the differences in the Doctors, where 9 was such a quiet anger sometimes, especially in the scene in the is it the long game? The long game, where, they think they've just seen Rose die, and he's just very quietly like, go, and they escape from the prison and everything. But you get 10 and he's like, where is she, kind of thing. And it's great. It also made me think, like, man, it's too bad The Wire didn't decide to wait, 60, 70 years. Cause like, I watched the most recent coronation on TikTok. I found there were several live streams of the coronation on TikTok that morning, which is wild, to think about. But yeah, overall, I really adore this season, and there's a lot of little moments that I feel are underappreciated sometimes.
Yeah.
So
I'm trying to look up, because I forgot what it was called. Magpie Electronics.
Yes.
I thought it was really cool.
It pops up a lot. Yeah.
It pops up a lot. Yeah. Even the 12th Doctor's guitar amp is a Magpie Electronics guitar amp. And I think it's funny that they just keep it running through the series.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I love those little kind of nods to, the little connections. Again, people are like, the MCU. I'm like, I get excited when I see Magpie Electronics in the show, and it's been years since that episode aired, kind of thing.
But I don't know how true this is, to be honest, because I can't remember where I heard it from. But for not Idiot's Lantern, I'm sorry, for Love and Monsters, what was his name? Sorry, 1 second.
Elton?
The main guy who was that his name?
Elton, because there's a whole thing about like Elton John.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Elton. Mark Warren. I had heard at one point, and I'm not sure if it's true or not, that this episode was supposed to set him up to be the next companion after Rose had left, and I don't know if it was because of this episode or something
and
else.
Everyone hated it.
Yeah, I don't know if it was because of that or if it was for other reasons, but obviously he wasn't the next companion. But that's why I'd heard that this was setting him up to be that. That's kind of part of the whole organization that they had, and why they had that kind of storyline like that.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it like I said, it's an episode, but it's definitely it's silly, it's fun. I get why people don't love it, and it's not one of my favorites either, but I feel like there's some good parts in there. It's silly, it's fun. I
think the end of it is what really like puts the icing on the cake for everyone, where it's like, no, I think I'm done with this episode.
Yeah. Like it's a little uncomfy. They could have stopped it like 10 minutes before it
earlier,
ended, and it would have been
I've not made that comment.
Yeah, they could have cut that.
They don't have to make this work. You don't have to. No.
Not all network TV episodes are winners.
Because in the Five Doctors, it is a punishment that those people get stuck in stone for the rest of their life. Like, why would the Doctor do that kind of thing? You know what I mean? Because part of the story in the Five Doctors, I don't know if you guys have watched it at all or anything, but part of the plot is that the characters, specifically, I want to say it's Benefit, but I know part of the plot is like there's some characters and they are trying to get into the Tomb of Rassilon to get one of his of Rassilon artifacts, because that's a huge MacGuffin in Classic Who is all the of Rassilon stuff. But when they try to take the thing from Rassilon, they get transported and put into this block of cement on his pier for the rest of their life, which for Time Lord is forever. And it's like a punishment and a bad thing. So it's a little weird that the Doctor saved her by sticking her face in the cement for the rest of time. I don't know.
I'd heard that might be an origin for Weeping Angels as well.
Oh yeah.
But what if Ursula was the first Weeping Angel? That'd make everyone hate life.
Oh my god.
Oh man. Yeah. So we're kind of talking about this anyway, so I'll just ask this question too. If you could change anything about this season, if anything, what would you change?
Damn. I mean, there's episodes I like less, but I don't know if I would change them because there's still relevant information in them that's necessary for plot progression. Him and Rose getting separated hurts me every time, but I get why it's necessary.
Yeah.
It's a canon event.
It's a canon event. I can't change it. I hate it, but it is what it is. I don't know if I would change anything. I'm just going to continue to internally be bitter about things. And that's just going to be what it is.
Now wondering if we need to add a spoiler alert for Spider-Verse to the top of this episode.
No
it's been
one
out
knows.
for a week.
No one knows. All we're saying it's canon event. That's it.
That is a Doctor Who thing too. It's a fixed point in time. Yeah, I don't know if I would change anything. Ask me in later seasons, and that answer will change. But right as of this second, no, I don't think there's anything I would change.
I think it would probably just change the end of Love and Monsters because we don't really need the innuendo. I think that just makes it very awkward. Yeah. That's basically it. Because, I don't know. That's just that. I can go on about that for a bit. Yeah,
it's I'm the same way. I'm there's bits and pieces and lines that just aren't great, like the Chips line, some of the comments in School Reunion, it's just yikes, kind of thing, or even some of the casting, but that's not something that we knew about until recently kind of thing. it's not. I don't. How do I phrase this without making people mad at me? I don't think it's as perfect of a season.
It's the internet. You can't.
I know. I'm like, I don't think it's as perfect of a season as season 1 was. Like season 1, I think overall is like
flawless season.
It's flawless, you know.
Yeah.
But season 2, you know, it's got some hits and misses, you know. But I like it. It's a good season. You know, like I said, I have a little kind of couple things with just how Rose is written on occasion in this season. And this is more like real life than show, but like would it have killed them to do something Doctor Who for the Olympics in 2012? Like, I'm not saying that David Tennant needed to be the one to light the torch, but I'm like, you could have made him an attempt. You could have made an attempt. An attempt could have been made to include that somehow, rather than just relegating it to like the sound of the TARDIS at the end of one of the acts or whatever it was. I'm like, you know,
that's still fun.
But yeah, it's just overall, it's a good season. I don't think it's as perfect as other seasons of the show, but mostly I have no notes. I would say overall. Was there anything else you guys want to talk about for season 2? Because we got through this pretty quick.
That's probably the most structured episode we've gone through, to be honest.
I know.
Yeah,
I had to do questions in advance a little bit.
She even had the Tonys on, and we stayed on track for most of this episode.
We did, yeah.
Into the Woods hasn't performed yet.
Have not. No, I got a little distracted when Anne Juliet was performing, because I deeply want to know what that
It's
show
been
is.
paused since before the Music Man performance, so I'm about to power through this whole thing right now.
I am very excited about the Back to the Future musical, though. That I'm going to try and see.
That's been in development for like 10 million years, so it better be good.
So one thing I think we do have to cover, because I feel it's very important, it's a fixed point in time that occurs in this season. I think we have to discuss Rose getting swept into the alternate universe and 10 losing her. We must talk about Doomsday.
The most canon, the most upsetting canon event of my existence with the show. I think the writing on it was great. It was done really well, because the fact that it's still this upsetting to me means it was written very well. Great writing. I think that's what made it the hardest for me to go into the next season, because there's a break, right? He does an episode with Donna first before Martha comes into the picture, and I was like, and you know what? I immediately loved Donna more. I was like, great, this is gonna be the new companion. And then we like went to a new episode, and there was Martha. I was like, wait, rewind, go back. What happened to the other one? But I think it was a good segue. I will say the order of companions after Rose actually made a lot of sense. Had he gone straight to Donna, I don't think their dynamic would have been as comfortable to watch, because like Rose was his best friend, and that's kind of the dynamic that he had with Donna, was they were best friends / roommates, because like that relationship is a little bit different. Like they had the bickering down pretty good. But I think we all needed to go through Martha, because we all needed to grieve Rose, including the Doctor, and him realizing that he's not going to be romantically involved with a companion again, and definitely not that soon after Rose was probably important for everybody to see. But yeah, Doomsday, because that was the second 2-parter of the season, was the ghost episode. I will say this is that was one
another great episode with Jackie.
I was just gonna bring that up. I was like, Jackie in that episode was freaking hilarious. Like, she just nonstop. She's like, she pops out and she's like, yes, this is I am Rose Tyler. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, we're good momming right here. But it was she was That was probably the most wildly entertaining she was for me.
I even love the bit where where they're watching the TV and the ghosts even come up on like one of the soap operas or whatever, and the doctor asks, you know, like, when did this start? And Jackie starts explaining the plot of the soap opera to him, and I'm like, that's not something she would do just out of the blue. I'm like, clearly Jackie and the doctor have been watching soap operas on occasion together.
Yes. Yeah, she's catching him up from the last time they did this.
Exactly.
So, in regards to 10 losing Rose, I think it was heartbreaking, not just because, you know, everyone has this connection with Rose, everyone loves them together, but it showed like how not just dependent they are on each other, but how strong they are together too, because there were the two levers. She had to do one, he had to do one, and she was, you know, absorbed, swept away, sucked into the other dimension, whatever, performing the act of saving our own universe with the Doctor. And the Doctor knowing that, you know, there's nothing that he can do to help her, but knowing that if he helps her, that it sacrifices our own universe as well. It's just the whole, it's just, I don't know. I liked it. I will go through. I will gladly go through heartbreak like that over and over again on television.
Yes. Yeah. I do prefer even though it's sad, I do kind of prefer the kind of tragic ends for the companions versus just, I'm going now, goodbye kind of thing. But I do.
They're heartbreaking, but satisfying in a way.
Yes.
I will say the one that's just straight up inexcusable is Donna's end, though. I will never not be angry about it. I'm like, really? Like,
I think we're getting that fixed in a couple months here, though.
I don't know. I'm still not. We're jumping seasons. I'm still never going to be over 10 on Wilfred's doorstep with Donna. Just like, help me. I'm like.
Yeah.
End me now.
Yeah. No, and it's and I think Doomsday is so impactful because 9 has his audio adventures with Big Finish, but they very specifically have written those so that he never has a long-term companion. Rose is the first long-term companion that the Doctor has had since the Time War. Mm-hmm. And to see that impact on him, you know, even before we had any of these extra stories, to see that impact on him is so heartbreaking. You know, this is somebody that she's the first person that he's gotten close to since he lost his entire planet. He's had friends here and there, you know, but it's heart-wrenching. It is a heart-wrenching episode and so good. And I love that we even get Martha's cousin in this episode, you know? Yeah. Because Freema does pop up. It was also funny. The first time I rewatched it after seeing, the first time I watched it after watching the, I believe it was the 25th anniversary concert of Phantom of the Opera in the West End. The guy who plays Raoul in that concert is in this episode too. he's Martha's cousin's like boyfriend.
Oh wow. Okay, I didn't know that.
Hadley
That's
Fraser.
awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's Hadley Fraser, which is fun. And it's just they're so heartbreaking. David and Billie are both such amazing actors, you know.
I think the end of like their dynamic at the end of this episode, and kind of 10's reaction is very, very similar to me to the way Matt Smith's Doctor reacts when Amy goes back to be with Rory, and like that's like the heartbreak on his face reads very similarly to me, and those are probably why those are my two favorite. Like those are my two favorite Doctors. I think they play it. One coming right after the other actually played really well because I don't think their the personality changed too much, and that's probably why I've never gotten through. I know you guys have both said that he's your favorite, but I have never made it all the way through Capaldi's because the Doctor's always been dark, but he's always had like a goofiness to offset it, and I feel like Capaldi was just like dark, and I'm like I can't emotionally handle this. Like I will say, I need the levity to offset it a little bit, and he just didn't have it for me. And that, and I really was not bought into Clara before Matt left. So after that, I was like, new doctor and a companion I wasn't wild about. Nah.
You should try watching his season with Bill, because he does get a little goofier as time goes on, which is nice.
Okay. I did power through it. When I found out River was coming back, I powered through all these episodes, so I knew what was going on. I'm like, I'm watching River's song, and then I'm out again.
You would probably really like 12 and Bill. That is a very fun season, I will say.
Bill
I do love his kind of like, he eventually becomes this goofy space grandpa, and I love him so much.
Yeah, Bill wasn't as light-hearted. The episodes weren't as light-hearted. Like, she wasn't as bubbly as Donna, but she was more inquisitive, like, what's this? What's going on here? Why can't we do this? And so she does have that aspect to her. Unfortunately, she only had the one series, so her run was a little bit short. But yeah,
I do love the companions and the characters in anything really that are aware of the genre that they're in, because nothing bugs me more than characters that don't know what genre they're in, which is like I can't get through horror just because I can't watch horror. Like, it freaks me out too much, but also like it annoys me when the characters are like, oh, let's go to this dark spooky forest, you know. It's like, no, you don't know what genre you're in. It irritates
I get
me.
that. I love horror movies, but I will watch them. I'm like, I don't feel bad for stupid. Hello? Yes, I will go into the basement into my underwear. I'm like, well, you're going to get murdered, and you did that to you.
Exactly. Yeah. So I like it whether they're kind of self-aware, you know, because one of Bill's lines that I love is, do you know any sci-fi?
Well, I think that's what I love. I like the Empty Child episodes with Rose. Like, are we going to do a scan for alien tech? No? Yes. Then what are we doing?
Like, what? Come on, y'all. All right. Yeah. So probably time to wrap it up. We've been recording for about an hour. We've talked a lot about it. So let's do my one silly little bit that I always have. I always am like, oh, I'll do the first random TARDIS wiki page that comes up, and then like it'll come up with something completely just awful.
That's so funny.
She'll do a random one. It's like, Doctor Who had an episode on this day.
Yeah, great.
Like, that's it.
You're like, yeah, we got that. Thanks.
Oh, well, actually, I got not a horrible one. I've got Haresh Chandra, who is the father of Rani Chandra, who's a character from the Sarah Jane Adventures, which I have not watched apart from the episodes that 10 and 11 are in. Let's find a fun fact about him. Let's see. Haresh attended the memorial for Sarah Jane because he went to Jita to collect sausage rolls from the kitchen. He missed the trickster's attack on the service.
Amazing. Love
Great.
that.
Life-changing sausage rolls right there.
Life-changing.
So proud of him.
At least I got a good one. Yeah, sometimes I'll get like a year and it's be like, this episode aired this year. And I'm like, great, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so before we wrap it up, would you like to end with reintroducing yourself or saying socials or anything like that?
Sure. Alexandria Callaghan. I am a comic book writer for Temple of Geek, and I have my own website also, alexandriacallaghan.com, where I post everything else that people are already covering on the Temple of Geek site. So. Thanks for having me on, you guys. This is fun.
Yeah,
it was
great.
Fun. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, it was great having you. All right. And that's all for this episode of Temple of Geek's Who Review. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to subscribe and leave us a review. You can also follow us on social media for more Doctor Who content. On Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram as @Temple of Geek. You can also visit templeofgeek.com for Doctor Who cosplay guides, episode reviews, news, and more. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.